music in that just gets me so pumped up every Friday. Let's go. Welcome in, everybody, to another Friday afternoon AMA week 5 edition. This is week 5, right? Time is flying by. We are already in October. I had to change on the thumbnail. The little date down at the bottom was in September, and I had to change it to October. I don't know where the time is flying, man, but pretty soon we're going to be Thanksgiving, trade deadline, December, fantasy playoffs, 2025 offseason. I'm getting too far ahead of ourselves. We are focused here on week 5. So welcome in, everybody, to another Friday AMA. Christian's been looking forward to this all week. Welcome in, Christian. I look forward to this every week as well. This is easily like the highlight of my week for sure. Jordan loves this intro. I feel like I cooked so hard with that intro. I spent like 3 hours trying to make that thing, finding the right templates, finding the right music. I feel like I cooked with that one. So welcome in, everybody. We will just we'll just kick things off right at the top. We gotta get through these questions. If this week is anything like last week, I had to stop before answering every single one. So let's run through them. Let's see what we got here. Seth, 12-team half PPR, best ball. Got offered Najee for Travis Kelce. Accept or hold for more. Oliver just woke up. I don't know if you can hear him in the background. Najee for Travis Kelce. I think this depends on. I don't know what the what your team looks like in terms of if you are competing or not. I imagine based on the team that you are competitive. It sucks that you lost Rashee Rice, but with the rest of the team that you have there with Goff and Carr, Chuba over the past couple of weeks, Aaron Jones, DK, Lamb, that you are probably competing, that you're probably maybe 2-2, 3-1, maybe you're 4-0. I think I would rather just hold on to Travis Kelce. I like Najee Harris as not necessarily a cash out. I think this is a very fair offer, but I do think that Travis Kelce is going to be very, very good with Rashee Rice out. If that's for the next 4 weeks, 6 weeks, the rest of the year, whatever it ends up being for Rashee Rice, because we still don't know the extent of his injury. I'd rather just hold on to Travis Kelce rather than have Najee be your like RB, well, probably your RB4 right now behind Chuba, RB3 maybe if Chuba gets kind of cast aside for Jonathan Brooks. But I like Jones and Jacobs. I would probably never play Najee over either one of those two when all of them are healthy. I'd rather just hold on to Travis Kelce. And then I'm sure that if he is actually productive, you could probably sell him for probably the exact same thing or Najee Harris, or maybe it's a different running back, or maybe it's a little bit better of a player or better of a asset. If he actually is productive and somebody is looking for another tight end and you got David Njoku waiting in the wings, especially if Amari actually ends up getting traded, and Njoku could be a big winner. So I'd rather just hold on to Travis Kelce for now. Peter, happy Friday. Welcome in, man. Start, sit, pick one, half PPR, T, Kareem Hunt, Trey Sermon, Michael Pittman. I'm starting T Higgins out of this whole entire group. He's had some pretty massive games out of or against Baltimore. His target share over the past couple of weeks has been incredible. The usage has been really good. Him and Burrow just haven't necessarily connected on a couple of good throws or end zone targets. So I'll start T Higgins this week in what I expect to be probably a pretty good shootout with the Baltimore Ravens. Kareem Hunt, I think, could be solid, but if CEH comes back this week, what does that look like? Trey Sermon maybe is good. Michael Pittman. I like all these guys as potential starts. I just like T Higgins, I think, the most out of all of them. And then Taysom, if he plays, or Mark Andrews. Oh my God. I hate I hate the fact that this is where we're at with Mark Andrews. I think I would play Taysom Hill, assuming that he plays. He's got fractured ribs though, so I know it's not like, oh, if you're just looking for a good floor, then that could be Mark Andrews. That's definitely has not been the case because he's donutted you twice in a row. But I think Taysom has the more upside than Mark Andrews, but also like if he tries to play with this rib injury and then gets hit really hard on the first drive and then he's out for the game, I could see that as a possibility too. I feel like I might just play Mark Andrews again this week and just hope that, that Bengal Ravens game ends up being as good as it as good as what I hope it could be in terms of scoring 50, 60 plus points. Um, Paulson does not have Taysom Hill in here, but he has Mark Andrews as the tight end 16. So he would probably say that if Taysom was healthy, he'd probably play him. Yeah, probably. I'm sorry, I can't really give you like a for sure answer. I think if Taysom Hill plays and they're saying that like, yeah, he's good to go, all good, then I'm fine just playing Taysom Hill. BG Gaming 12 team Zero Flex tight end premium. I have Love and Stafford as my quarterbacks. I want to compete next year. What should I do with Stafford? You should probably it depends because the contenders in your league right now probably don't have like Tua. They're probably pretty set with Lamar and Josh Allen and maybe Jaden Daniels right now, maybe Kyler or whoever else they have, Dak Prescott maybe. That there probably isn't a need for a quarterback among the contenders just yet. So I'd probably hold on to him and wait to see if more injuries kind of pop up at the quarterback position to where maybe it strikes one of their contenders and they kind of get desperate. Not to say that you could get more from Matthew Stafford in that sense, but he just might be more tradable in that regard later on if there are injuries and a contender gets desperate. I think the days of trading Matthew Stafford for a first are kind of gone. Maybe if you use one of those firsts and Stafford and buy low on an injured quarterback of yet to come, or if you bought just like Caleb Williams with Stafford in a first and somebody's already done with Caleb, then that maybe could work. Or if somebody that has Dak maybe wants to try to, I don't know. I'm just trying to spitball off the top of my head, just thinking what comes into my head. But I think you're probably waiting on Stafford until other situations for other teams probably get more desperate for them if quarterback injuries arise. And that might also correlate with Puka and or Cup also coming back and then Stafford's fantasy production going up because of it too. So I think you're just having a waiting game right now. I know it's weird because you're competing and you want to get rid of this aging asset, but he's not all that marketable right now. I think you just have to be patient over the next month or 2 months until his situation gets a little bit better. Maybe other team situations gets a little bit worse, makes him a little bit more marketable to then sell for a couple of seconds or like I said, package him with one of your firsts and then you can upgrade that way, buy low somebody else. I think that's what you have to do with Stafford right now. Carlos, 10 team PPR dynasty, don't need a running back currently, so would be a depth piece until he's worth a start. Trade away a 25 mid to late first for Jonathan Brooks. Absolutely. Or do the running backs in 2025 interest you more than Brooks? As of right now, there's only one running back that potentially interests me more than Brooks, and that's Gene T. All the other running backs, I was actually just looking at this running back class like half an hour ago, prepping for another video, and it just is like none of them are really doing fantastic. Like Omari and Hampton might end up being like the most interesting RB2 because Travion and Judkins are killing each other. Devin Neal is I really like Devin Neal, but he just doesn't seem like he's like a top end guy. Singleton and Katron Allen, I think, have tools, but they also kill each other. And then Ollie Gordon, and it's just like there's just a whole mess of all these guys. Whereas I think Jonathan Brooks in year two coming off the ACL in a Dave Canales offense could be much more intriguing than basically every single running back in next year's class, minus what Ashton Jean T is doing right now. And Jean T looks incredible. But even then, I might still take Jonathan Brooks. If you're trading a mid to late first next year, you're not getting GT with that first. So I would trade a mid to late first for Jonathan Brooks right now, especially if he's just depth. I think that's great. Who do I start as my second running back? Also, keep up the great work. Loving your videos and how much you're helping me out and everyone else. Appreciate that, my man. So as your second running back, I would play. I think of this group, I would play Trey Sermon if Jonathan Taylor is out. If JT is in, then I would probably. I'd probably pinch my nose and try to play Javonte. Rico would have been interesting, but he plays Pittsburgh. So that kind of sucks. Yeah, Paulson has Trey Sermon as the RB23. He has Javante RB24, Justice Hill RB25, Rico RB28. So you can see all four of them are basically right in there. Braylon Allen is down at 34. And I don't even know where Jaleel McLaughlin is. Somewhere way down there. Oh, there he is, 32. So he's ahead of Braylon. So man, you're like right in the. I think if I were you, I'd hope Jonathan Taylor doesn't play, which I don't think he's looking like he's going to. So it might just make you an easy decision to just play Trey Sermon. If JT does play, then I would play Javante then. And then who do you start at flex between Tutu, Andrews, Tolbert, Yoshi, and Polk, or any of the names above? Um, that's where I'd probably then play Javante. I need to check because Tutu is the most interesting one on here. It's weird that I'm wanting to sit Mark Andrews, but yeah, yep, he agrees. Tolbert is interesting, but again, they play Pittsburgh, and Yoshi with Higgins back, kind of a touchdown guy. I'd play Sermon and Javante, and if JT plays, then I'd play Javante, and I like Justice Hill. I'm in on Justice Hill. I'll agree with Paulson on that one to play Justice over Rico. Sorry for the second question, but a lot of analysts are saying to move Addison now. What do you think, and who would you move him for? Yeah, I mean, I've been on the sell Jordan Addison trade for a few months now. I think that he's become less of an immediate sell for me, though. I'm just pulling up keep trade cut. I don't have interest in Lad McConkey. I'd rather have Addison than Lad McConkey. And KTC agrees. T. Higgins would be like the number because I'm looking at KTC. They have Jordan Addison as the wide receiver 25 and T. Higgins as wide receiver 31. So I would make that deal immediately to go get T. Higgins. Addison is also not all that far behind Waddle, Pickens, Ayuk, and JSN. I would immediately flip Addison for all four of those guys. So I think that's a good solid grouping of 5 dudes that you could flip Jordan Addison for right now and see maybe whichever one is the cheapest, or maybe if somebody's willing to add something to one of them to get like add to Jalen Waddle or add to Brandon Ayuk because they're struggling right now to get over to Jordan Addison. Doesn't have to be anything big. It could be like a third, and that's just a free 3rd round pick. Or add to T. Higgins too. Those would be probably the 5 guys that I'd look for to flip Jordan Addison. Cameron, 10 by 10, super flex, half PPR, half tight end premium contender, half a deal to send away Rice, Bigsby, and Benson for Muth. No, I just read the rest of this. No. This is such a sell low on Rashee Rice that it's not even funny. Because Rice, the news, everybody's apparently saying that Rashee Rice might be back in like a month or so, which is crazy to me, given the the actual like if you actually looked at the injury and like watched Mahomes just plant his shoulder right into Rice's knee, that's crazy to me that he'd come back in like a month. This is such a sell low. I do not want to do this whatsoever. You are losing so much dynasty value to get the potential production from Mooney, Muth, and then you have to wait a year on that 25 first, which I'm sure you could use in some other regard. But I would tell you with that 25 first to then go buy Rashee Rice. So I'm not making this deal as a contender. AJ Brown, I expect to be back next week after the bye this week. And Adams won't be hurt as soon as he gets dealt. So I'd rather just have Rice, Bigsby, and Benson and not lose dynasty value. Jordan's trying to be hard to be patient with. Jordan's trying hard to be patient with Bijan Robinson. Almost sold him before the game last night. If anybody's panicking on Bijan, I will buy him. I'm not paying top dollar for Bijan like he was prior to the season coming in because I think that all of the running backs just in general have kind of lost a lot of value. But I would love to pay for Bijan at a 15 to 20% discount. Or if it's like a first and second for Bijan or a first and I don't know, Alvin Kamara or Derrick Henry, you try to give them their production back, but you get Bijan Robinson for the long haul. I'd buy. I think that it's really weird watching the Falcons offense be so successful with Kirk Cousins just chucking it to London and Mooney, and he finally threw it to Kyle Pitts last night, so that was fun. And Bijan like not being involved whatsoever, but they're still so successful. So yeah, I'm not at the point where I would consider Bijan to not be the guy that I thought he was. I think it's very clear that he's still very, very talented. The matchup last night was also really rough against Tampa Bay, so I didn't expect like some huge breakout game against the Buccaneers rush defense. But um, I still think that Bijan is Bijan Robinson, and there are greener pastures ahead. So I will buy Bijan Robinson at a discount. Yan Baggy, happy Friday. Sermon an okay throw in this week. Need dynasty running back help bad and got him on the pine. Yeah, if Jonathan Taylor sits, I think Trey Sermon is a really good play this week. I should say really good, the asterisk. I think he's a very good play this week. This is the whole reason why we are stashing Trey Sermon. And if Joe Flacco maybe is going to be in and helps to move the offense a little bit more than Anthony Richardson, then I think, Sermon last year had in his one, not necessarily start, but Zach Moss went out early. So Trey Sermon got a lot of the work, had, almost 90 rushing yards on like 16 or 17 carries. So I think this is the reason why you were stashing Trey Sermon all offseason. So play him this week if JT's out. Any hope for Kendre Miller? None. None whatsoever. Absolutely zero. Maybe 1% hope. 0.5% hope. But I have like none. But you can't sell him. You just have to wait and hope and see. And then maybe he's a roster clogger next year that we drop. But no. I wasn't really that big of a Kendre Miller fan. Justin was much more propping up Kendre Miller, but I was I was a huge Kendre Miller fan out of college. He was like, I think my RB4 coming out of the class. But then last year I was kind of off, or not last year, but like coming into this year, this past offseason, Justin was propping up Kendre as the guy to go for. And I didn't say anything about it, but I was really reserved on Kendre Miller because I saw people were trading like seconds for him and stuff. And I didn't really see that. So I still thought he was a solid stash for like a third, but I just thought he was a handcuff, which he still, I think, might be. So that's kind of what you're hoping for. Brian, 25 late first JSN, ETN, Bigsby, or Bijan. I'll take the first JSN and ETN. This is a trade that I think that could have been done prior to the season. This is full respect for Bijan Robinson, but I'll take the first JSN and ETN and Bigsby. Carlos, start 10-team PPR, B-Rob, Addison, Trey Sermon. I'll start Brian Robinson for sure for the touches, and I'll start Trey Sermon as well, again for the touches. Jamie, what's up, my man? Welcome in. 14-team app PPR have two offers, my Jacobs and DJ Moore for Tyreek and Odunze, or DJ Moore for Devontae Adams. Is this redraft or dynasty? Because I think in dynasty, I'd rather have Tyreek and Odunze, but in redraft, I'd probably rather have Jacobs and DJ Moore. I think that's my answer. I don't want, I wouldn't trade DJ Moore for Devontae either. I'll redraft, then I'll take Jacobs and DJ Moore. And I would also take DJ Moore over Devontae. Boom. My RB room is Brees, Bijan, and Mason, and I'm starting to panic because I'm a contender sitting at 1-3. If you're 1-3 as a contender, you might not be. Well, I should rephrase that. You probably are a contender, just not in 2024. I had to say that to somebody else in the comments that they're like, "What do I do? I have this team that I thought was a contender," and I was like, "You probably are because your team looks solid. You're just 2024 was not your year, and it might not be for you, Jordan. Maybe you could use this opportunity to build up for 2025 and build up a freaking superpower, which you probably thought you had a superpower, but." And I'm sure if I looked at it, and on August 30th, I would have said, boy, you just won a championship. 2024 is a weird year, man. Weird. Who do you like better rest of the season in Dynasty, Reed or Jameson Williams? Jaden Reed, 100%. Jameson Williams is starting to falter back into just being a high upside Gabe Davis because his target share has dropped every single week It went from like 25% to 19% to like 11% to like 5% or something like that. And Amon Ra is still fantastic. So I think the Jameson Williams hype train uh flew a little too close to the sun, and now the wings are starting to melt, and we're crashing back down to earth. Jaden Reed, on the other hand, looks phenomenal. He is the wide receiver one with Jordan Love. He's definitely the most talented receiver on that team, and he looks incredible. So Jaden Reed by far for both of these. 0-4 looking to start the rebuild process. Should I get rid of James Cook? What should I be looking to get for him? I would flip Cook for. I would go for a wide receiver. If you can flip James Cook for DK Metcalf, Ayuk plus, Higgins plus, Waddle plus, anything in that kind of regard, that would be, I think, fantastic. On keep trade cut, James Cook is neck and neck with Rashee Rice. If you could do that, that would be insane. He's also right there with Jaden Reed and Brian Thomas Jr. I would love that. He's also with Drake London. I would love that. He's ahead of Ayuk, Waddle, definitely ahead of T. Higgins. Where's Metcalf on this list? Oh, Metcalf is slightly above BTJ. So he's in the range of Metcalf, BTJ, Rice, and Reed. I would just trade Cook 1-for-1 for all of those guys. And then I would, if you don't get anywhere with any of that, then I would trade Cook I would try for Ayuk plus, Waddle plus, T. Higgins plus, is how I would go about it. Jamie, start one. Amari, Deontay, or Brian Thomas. I'll go with BTJ on that one. This week's get right game for the Jaguars. Who would you sit between Leggett, JSN, BTJ, Keon Coleman, Dubs, and Whittington? Dobbs. Originally thought Coleman, but now Shakir's out this week. Yeah, I did see that. I think. Camera, figure yourself out. I think I would sit Leggett this week because the Bears defense, the pass defense is a lot better than the run defense, and they're on the road. So I think I would set Xavier Leggett this week, and because he's the wide receiver too, which I mean most of these guys are wide receiver twos. But I think I'd sit Leggett. I probably would have said Coleman as well, but now with Shakir out, I think that makes him a little bit more interesting. So I do agree with that. I would definitely play JSN and BTJ. I'd definitely play Whittington. Dobbs is interesting with Christian Watson out. So I think I'd sit Leggett in this one. Andrews or Kraft in Dynasty. I traded Kraft for him this week. I just don't understand because I don't understand the recency bias. I would take Mark Andrews still in Dynasty over Tucker Kraft. That is 100% recency bias. I'm not there yet. Like my panic meter went up exponentially. Like my panic meter coming into last week was like a 3 out of 10 for Andrews. I'm at like a 7.5 out of 10. But I'm not at the point to say that Tucker Kraft is better than Mark Andrews in Dynasty. Maybe with 2 more donuts, I'll take that one. But I agree. Somebody else messaged me and they said that they got offered Mark Andrews for a third in Dynasty, and I said smash that immediately. So they got Andrews for a third. Maybe it's time to just go buy him just to see. I mean, it's still Mark Andrews, right? Maybe this is just a lost year and he gets back into it because he got hurt and then he had that car accident. And so if you can go buy Mark Andrews, maybe it's time to go buy Mark Andrews. Connor, contender only weakness is quarterback or QB2. 10-team 2 QB start 10. No, Dalton is your Lord and Savior. Geno owner asked a first and no one is moving a quarterback. Honestly, I think I'd rather just hold on to the first than pay for Geno. Or would I though? So 10-team 2 QB first. That's a late first. If you were to throw him Levis or Brissett, could you get something back just for fun? Like if you were to do Levis in the first for Geno and maybe not a third, is not going to be a second, but something else on his team. Something like a handcuff or like a high upside young like a high upside like wide receiver, or maybe like a production wide receiver. Um like a Tyler Lockett or something like that. I don't know what else he has on his team, but maybe I don't even know if he's interested in taking Levis and Brissett. I'm fine trading the first for Geno Smith. Uh, I like Andy Dalton rest of season though, but I'm fine trading the first for Geno. And but I'd like to see if maybe he'd be interested in taking on one of Levis or Brissett too, and maybe you could get something back that kind of helps you with production now, um, or gives you some upside for later on in the future. 10 team 3 super flex. Wow. Brees and Hawkinson or Bowers and a first. Ooh. Um, I'll take Brees and Hawk. I would take Brees over a first round pick, and Hawk and Bowers. I would take Bowers over Hawkinson, but with the way that Sam Darnold's playing right now and Hawk coming back, I think there's only Hawkinson, I think, can only go up from here. And I think selling Brees for a first round pick is panicking right now. Unless you told me this is some like heavy tight end premium or something like that, that might make Bowers more interesting, but it would also raise Hawk as well. I would take Brees and Hawkinson here. Got to start one between Whittington and Atwell. I would actually start Whittington. His yards per route run and targets per route run the past couple weeks have been tremendous. So I'd probably start Whittington. Christian says 2-2, but let's see what Paulson says. Paulson has Whittington as flex 64. He's got 2-2 as flex 79. So Paulson also would say Whittington. I'm team Whittington. What are we doing with Garrett Wilson? RP metrics for the season are still really good. Just Rodgers going elsewhere and offense limiting the route tree, late to midseason breakout, or destined wide receiver 2. Somewhere in the middle, I think. I would also like to be buying Garrett Wilson too. I think that he's still getting targets at a crazy level. It's just that the rest of the situation just isn't there. His completion percentage or reception percentage with Rodgers has been the same that it was with Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian, and they have Tim Boyle. Was that another quarterback that played for the Jets? They had so many. His yards per target is down. I feel like that's an offensive thing. I think that there is still room to grow for Garrett Wilson if the Jets actually move on from their coaching staff this year. I think Nathaniel Hackett sucks. That's like very obvious, and we knew that even when he signed with the Jets, coming out of Denver, we knew that he sucked, and that Rodgers just really propped him up in Green Bay. Robert Saleh, I think it's time for him to go. So I think that there is still stuff to be excited about for Garrett Wilson, and he's still a very heavy target earner. He was just overvalued, and now the value correction is coming back down. So I think that's something that we need to do is just reframe our mindset on where Wilson should be ranked. And, it didn't work out. It sucked that, we valued him as wide receiver 6, 7, or 8 or whatever, but he wasn't worth that. But that doesn't mean that he's still not a good investment or still not a good player to have now as a reframed wide receiver 14 or 15, like where Drake London or Chris Olave were entering the season. So I still think Garrett Wilson, I would be holding on to Garrett Wilson. I would actually love to be buying Garrett Wilson too, if I could. But I would not be like panic selling him right now. I think the good time to sell him is I think his sell window closed. I think that was after week 1 or week 2 was his sell window when he still kind of held on to top 10 wide receiver value. But as of right now, I don't think it necessarily makes sense. I mean, he's still wide receiver 10 on KTC. And if you could use him to flip over to Rashee Rice, then I think that would be great. If you wanted to, I just don't get why you would maybe flip him for Metcalf or BTJ. I just believe so much more that Rice was ahead of Garrett Wilson prior to the injury. So you're just buying the injury dip. But if you can use Garrett Wilson to get to Puka or AJ Brown, then I'm fine doing that too. Or Nico, if you could do that. But I think if you're just like, oh, would you rather have Garrett Wilson or BTJ, Garrett Wilson or Jaden Reed, Garrett Wilson or DK Metcalf, I just hold Garrett Wilson at that point. I don't think there's anything that's alarmingly telling me to move off of Garrett Wilson for anybody else. Oh, with Wilson, would you trade BTJ straight up, or would you need something added? Um, you probably can't get BTJ. There. It depends on who the person is with BTJ. If you have Garrett Wilson, I would not be selling him for BTJ straight up. And if you had BTJ, I would not sell him for Garrett Wilson straight up. I would just keep whoever you had because they both are totally fine. The only way I would trade off of either one for the other is if you got something on top. So if you had BTJ, I would sell him for Garrett Wilson plus, and I would sell Garrett Wilson for BTJ plus. To the same tier. What's the point? Charbonnet or Samaje? As a start sit this week, probably Samaje. Because he got some usage. He got the touchdown last week too. I'll take Samaje as a start sit this week. I'd rather have Charbonnet rest of season. But if as a start sit, I'd have Samaje. Currently contending, but needs some running back wide receiver depth. Pacheco on IR. Any trade targets using a late 25 first or 25 second round pick? David Montgomery, Brian Robinson, Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard. There's your 4. That would be it. At wide receiver, you could use a first for Chris Godwin, or really the way that these questions should be reframed. And it's totally fine because you're just like, oh, who are some targets? It's so hard to give you guys targets because I could give you all 4 of those could be on contending rosters that they're not selling those guys because they're competing. So really, not to say to stop asking this question, but this is how I would approach this question is you're sitting there, you're like, all right, I need some extra depth. I have a first, I have a second. What you should be doing is you should be looking at the rebuilding teams, the teams that are currently sitting at 1-3 and 0-4. Go through every single one of their rosters and see if they have anybody that doesn't necessarily fit that build. See if they have, a David Montgomery or a Brian Robinson or a Tony Pollard and they're 1-3, 0-4. That then create the list of players that could be suitable trade targets and then, match that up. Or then that could be the new frame question. Be like, hey, looked at some rebuilding teams because I'm trying to trade away my first for some extra running back or wide receiver depth or some extra production, or looked at the rebuilding teams. And I think that, I could maybe I could get a Devontae Adams. I could get a Mike Evans. I could get a Tony Pollard. I can get an Aaron Jones. Those are the 4 players on rebuilding teams that I could probably get. Would you trade a first or a second for any of those? That would be a reframing of how I would ask these questions. So hopefully I try not to I'm not mad at these questions. I still love answering these questions, but that I think makes it easier for you and for me to know who's even available. Cause like I just said, if you're like, oh, who's a good trade target? I'd be like, oh, I love buying David Montgomery right now for around this kind of price. I love buying Brian Robinson right now for around this kind of price. You look on your league. Oh, they're both on 3-1, 4-0 teams. They're not going to trade them for first round picks. That's kind of the how I would go about approaching that type of question. If you had just DM'd me or something like that, I'd be like, well, who's on the rebuilding teams? So sorry, Juan, not to totally go off a tangent on your question or anything like that, but I like it. Oh, we got a crumble cookie coming to our town. Let's go, dude. Austin Eckler's cleared for the concussion protocol, so he's going to play. Nice. Trey McBride's good to go. Nice. All right. Sorry, DraftKings, or not DraftKings, but Bleacher Nation notifications. And my friend texted me saying that we're getting a crumble cookie. I think the Rice situation is a good lesson on patience and not selling right after an injury. Absolutely. Especially with a player like Rashee Rice. He was the only reason that people are worried about him right now is because they don't think that they're going to get production, and they're just so worried and desperate about the production. So they're trying to sell low on him. But he was well on his way to being a top 7 or 8 dynasty wide receiver, if he wasn't already, because of his production. So if you can buy the injury dip, even as a contender, if you could buy the injury dip, I would freaking love to do that. Cause then, I don't know, depending on the certain types of trades, if you could buy Rashee Rice as a contender, depending on what you paid for him, like if you just paid your first and a second for Rashee Rice to a rebuilder, um, or to a contender, they're just trying to get rid of it, or maybe it was, like I said, Devontae Adams and a first for Rashee Rice. You just gave them Devontae Adams, and they're hoping that he can get production out of that. But maybe Devontae didn't really change your uh, probability of winning if Devontae was like your 2 or 3 or 4, and he wasn't really producing all that well anyway. And who knows where he gets traded to, and what production he'll have then. So if that didn't really necessarily change the odds of winning for you now, but adding Rashee Rice could change the odds of you winning exponentially for 2025, 2026. That's what you got to do as a contender, man. It takes very specific contender teams to make that work. But if you can buy Rashee Rice, everybody should be actively buying Rashee Rice, I think, right now, for any kind of a deflated value. Start 2 between Wicks, Sutton, Jennings, and Singletary. Wicks for sure. And is Singletary playing? Do we have news on if Singletary is even going to play? Malik Neighbors officially won't play. Devin Singletary might not either. And with Neighbors out, I don't even know if Singletary is as good of a play, because that offense is probably going to be trash. Paulson has Sutton ranked as the flex 56. He's got Jennings ranked as the flex 59. Wicks ranked as the flex 51. And just, does he have Singletary in here? Singletary is 42. So Paulson would say Singletary and Wicks. And if Singletary doesn't play, then he would do Wicks and Sutton. I kind of think that yeah, but then Debo and Ayuk. I think I would play Sutton too. I'm fine with that. Juwan Jennings might be interesting just because I think that Niners Cardinals game could be really high scoring too. But with Debo back and the Ayuk breakout game coming hopefully very soon, I'll play Wicks and Sutton. Would you sell Worthy because Rice is out and see what you can get, or just keep him? I'm not competing this year. Don't really know what to do with him. I don't think that you have any real reason to trade Worthy right now because it's just all upside. Because if you sell him right now and he were to like solidify himself as the wide receiver 1 with Rice out, and like outproduce Travis Kelce, and get really into this offense, then his value is going to skyrocket, because then everybody's going to be like, well, he's producing with Rice out. And even if Rice comes back and blah, 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 Travis Kelce maybe retires at the end of the year. I think there's only upside for Xavier Worthy that I don't really think that there's any reason to sell him right now. Because if he just kind of does what he does and gets like 4 or 5 targets a game, catches a 50-yard touchdown every other week, and just kind of averages like 11 to 12 PPR points per game, then I think that his value is just going to stay with where he's at right now. That I think that you could get the exact same that you could in a trade now at that point as well if he doesn't produce all that well, or is just fine. But the upside is that he produces really well with Rashee Rice out, and then gains a boatload of value. So I would just hold on to Xavier Worthy, especially if you're only getting like picks. Like if you're like, oh, would you sell Worthy for a 25 first and second? What's the point in that? Like I was already trying to trade a 25 first to get into Xavier Worthy, so there's no real reason to trade off of him for just picks right now, unless again that he gets you into a tier of wide receiver that maybe you previously wouldn't have because Rashee Rice is out. Singletary is practicing today. Interesting. Might be an LP. And then yeah, he might not play. Maybe they'll just say screw it and just sit him anyway. I feel like Singletary won't play. And even if he does play, I don't even know how confident I would be in actually throwing him in my lineup with Malik Neighbors out. This is possible. The Bijan hamstring coming into it and everything like that. So it might be a good time to buy Bijan, assuming that somebody's panicking and not asking for craziness. What are we doing with Stevenson and Pollard if we're looking to compete next year? I'd probably flip both of them for or if you could package both of them. See, this is what on the opposite side, if as a rebuilder, if you have these assets, or not, or even like a rebuilder might insinuate multi-year, but a retooler for 2025, if you have both these guys, then I would be identifying who are the competing teams that could potentially need a running back. Did any of them lose Isaiah Pacheco? Are any of them still competing but don't have Christian McCaffrey? Did any of them, are they still waiting on Joe Mixon to come back? Bye week coming in. They have Saquon Barkley out this week or something like that. Like, how can you take advantage of contenders being a little bit desperate for running back help? And then what can you flip? What can you get from them? So in the opposite sense of what I was saying with, if you're a contender, your trade target should be coming from the rebuilding teams. As a rebuilder or retooler, your trade target should be coming from the contending teams. And then maybe you could try to find a piece that more aligns with a 2025 or longer build that isn't necessarily helping them right now. Like, could you trade one of these guys for Tank Dell? I think that would be phenomenal. Or like, add a Pollard in a second for Tank Dell. Could you do something like that? Could you maybe pull away a Trey Benson who's not competing right now and use one of these guys? Could you grab a Brandon Ayuk or Jalen Waddle for one of these guys? I will always forever go to both those guys. T. Higgins. Those are the guys that I would kind of identify and see if you could pull away somebody who's maybe underproducing now, but we know shouldn't be underproducing really, or maybe their circumstances for underproducing are not necessarily their fault, or players that are hurt, or just, assets that we haven't seen yet produce because they haven't made it on the field yet, a la like Trey Benson or something. So that's kind of how I would look at it with Stevenson and Pollard, is identify trade targets from contending teams that could need some extra running back depth, and what could you pull away from them? Drop any of these guys for Joe Flacco or Trey Tucker. I would drop Zamir White for Joe Flacco, assuming this is super flex. I'd drop Zamir White for Joe Flacco. I'd probably also drop Zamir White for Trey Tucker. If you want Tucker though, then I'm fine dropping. I want to hold on to Ray Davis. I want to hold on to Ray Davis still. I'm fine cutting Zamir White in Dynasty. I'm okay cutting Gus Edwards too for Trey Tucker. But I would definitely Zamir White for Joe Flacco, assuming this is super flex. If it's not super flex, then I don't necessarily think it's all that meaningful to pick up Flacco. So I'd drop White for Tucker. If this is redraft, then I just drop White and Edwards. I'm 2-2 in my first year of Dynasty Superflex League. What are your thoughts on George Pickens? I liked Pickens as well. He's again in that kind of Ayuk, Waddle, Higgins range of where I think Pickens is slightly underproducing right now based on where he would be if he were maybe not in an Arthur Smith offense, or maybe not catching passes from Justin Fields, who only throws the ball 15 to 20 times, maybe 28 times on a good game like he did against Indy. But Pickens, I think, is another good buy low target for a guy that's maybe slightly underproducing right now. If you have somebody else who's producing a little bit higher than him. So if you have like a Stephon Diggs, if you have a Devontae Adams, if you have a Mike Evans or Wan'Dale Robinson plus, Darnell Mooney plus, and go get George Pickens, then I think that's how it would go bad. 25 second and third for Tank Dell. Give me Tank Dell easily for that. I love that so much, man. For what would you try and swap JMO and D Hop for in a 12-team PPR redraft league? Good question. Let's go to. We have a trade evaluator on 4for4. I feel like I'm really bad at like redraft trades, just because sometimes they just seem so pointless. With if teams are already like 0-4, it's like, oh, your season's done. Why should I care anymore? DeAndre Hopkins. So according to this, you are in the Diggs, Brian Robinson, Joe Mixon, BTJ range. And I would do that for all of those guys. So, or Ayuk. Because really it's trying to just get off of Jameson Williams. So if you can move both these guys for BTJ, honestly, even ETN maybe, Diggs, B Rob, Joe Mixon, Ayuk, maybe Aaron Jones, maybe James Conner, maybe it's Garrett Wilson. Um, I'm fine with doing all that for. I'm fine with doing any of those guys for JMO and D Hop together. This is my wide receiver room for Nick. Oh, very good. Should I be looking to stick with them or get higher tier top end wide receivers? Um, with the way that Drake London's been playing, I mean, last night, not counting last night, but even before that, London had been looking pretty solid, and the offense is getting better with Kirk Cousins getting healthier. Love AJ Brown; he's a top tier guy already. Metcalf, I think, is a top wide receiver one. London's working his way into being a wide receiver one. I mean, he might be the wide receiver one based on what he did last night. Higgins, I think, is great by low. If you can maybe use the Wicks hype right now to package him and Lad McConkey together to move up and get a Brandon Ayuk. It's always gonna be Brandon Ayuk, man. I need that soundboard for sure. That was somebody said that last week. I need the Brandon Ayuk soundboard or Waddle or Pickens. Any of those. Those are my three favorite wide receivers to buy right now. Uh, then I would do that. It also depends, I think, on how many starters you need to start. Because if this is like a start, you can only start 3 or 4 wide receivers, then you have that. But if this is like a start, you can start up to 5 or 6 wide receivers. I'd probably just hold on to these guys. But if you can only start 3, maybe 3 of these guys, maybe I would probably try to see if I can get one more top end guy. So it might be a bit of a cop out answer for me because I don't necessarily know the entire context, but um, I think it also depends on how many wide receivers you can start. I would love to buy James Conner right now. I would not pay a first for him, but I would pay a second and a third, a second and something smaller around that. I think 2 seconds or some sort of ish value in that regard would be the most that I would pay for James Conner. If you can get away with it, like I said, for 1 second or just a second and a third or a second and Kendre Miller, um, then I would do that and go buy James Conner. But I wouldn't buy him for a third. But yes, I would go buy him right now. Given the wide receiver room I posted above, any upgrades that I should make? It's good to see that you have the better B Robinson running back. I love making that joke. It's so corny. Maybe now that I'm a dad, it just hits me a little bit harder. Honestly, I really don't see anything. I maybe if you can move off of Jordan Mason because if he's more of a short term asset and get something a little bit more long term, like a David Montgomery, kind of a running back, then I would be in on that. Maybe you could buy low on ETN or something to give yourself more longevity at that running back spot than Jordan Mason. I understand if you want to keep him because you're competing too. But those are kind of the moves if you are maybe 2-2 because you haven't had AJ Brown since week 1 and haven't had T Higgins really, and Bijan's been kind of meh. And Laporta and McBride have been kind of meh. So I think moving off of Jordan Mason would probably be what I would be looking to do. Singletary, maybe 2. I would definitely probably sell Kareem Hunt. Get rid of some of these temporary running back assets, and set yourself up more for some long-term stuff. And if the production then follows, or if Bijan continues to or actually starts doing something, and AJ Brown comes back and he's great, Metcalf and London are on the tear that they are, Higgins does well, you might not lose your competitiveness for 2024, but you might set yourself up for some more. Oh yeah, you are 2-2. So yeah, you might set yourself up for some more long-term insulation by moving guys like Mason, Singletary, and Hunt for sure. I think should be gone before this week. Would you drop any of these players for Trey Tucker? I would Zamir, but if this is super flex and you can get Joe Flacco for Zamir, then I would do that. And then I still don't know if I want to drop Gus Edwards. I think I'm fine with Gus Edwards, dropping Gus Edwards for Trey Tucker. You think Dalton starts the whole rest of the season? I do think that he does. I think there is no reason to go back to Bryce Young whatsoever. So I think that Andy Dalton is playing the remainder of the year, and Bryce Young played his last snap as a Panther. Bruce is in here. What's up, my man? Joe Burrow for Anthony Richardson in a 25 first. I would rather just have Joe Burrow. I really don't want Anthony Richardson, so I'd rather just hold on to Joe Burrow for that. Looking to ship Rashad and Tony Pollard off of my rebuilding team, but no takers. That's basically the same advice that I was giving to Braden with Stevenson and Pollard, and you also asking about Pollard. It might be you just need to exercise maybe a little bit of patience if you don't have any takers, but you got to find the contending teams that might be desperate for some running backs, and that desperation might come up the more that we get into bye weeks, because this is the first week with bye weeks, more injuries that pop up. That if you could sell either one of these two guys, even for like a second, maybe Rachaad White, definitely for a second. Pollard, you should be able to get a second for because he's producing. But yeah, if I know it's weird maybe to exercise patience with running backs, because if they get hurt, then their value goes down. But that's kind of the risk that you gotta just wait these guys out and wait out other teams potentially getting hurt too. So, yeah, just being a little patient, hoping that, and it's weird to hope for injuries, but that's what you kind of got to hope for some of these contenders in your league to get desperate. Chase, 10 team start, 10 PPR, Superflex, Breece Hall for Rice and 2 firsts. I would take Rashee Rice in the 2 firsts in a freaking heartbeat, dude. Especially as a rebuilder, that is a phenomenal deal. Take Rice in the 2 firsts. Is Kenneth Walker worth a 25 and 26 first? He might be worth it, but I don't really want to pay it. If it was a 25 first and a second, a 25 second or a 26 second, or if it was a 26 first and a 25 second, any combo of a first and second, I think that would be much more manageable for me to want to pay that. I don't think I would want to pay 2 first for Kenneth Walker though. So if you can get that to a first and second, or get something kicked back on this, even then, yeah, I'd probably do it. If it at the end of the day, if you can't get it done for a first and a second, but you end up getting Kenneth Walker and a second for 2 firsts, that's not the worst thing in the world. So I'd probably be fine with that too. How do you feel about Mahomes and Herbert at this point? They are my quarterbacks in my Superflex league, and I don't feel great. Would you trade for other QBs even if you had to add on top? Herbert, I feel like you're just kind of stuck with, unfortunately. The time to sell Justin Herbert was about 5 months ago. Honestly, maybe even more than that. 7 months ago. So you're probably just kind of stuck with him, because I don't know what the pivot point for Herbert would be. And I feel like even if you're going to try to move up to a Jordan Love or a Dak Prescott or a Kyler Murray or anything like that, you'd have to add way too much to Mahomes, or way too much to Herbert. As for Mahomes, I would love to, like Justin talked about it in his 5 moves video, I would love to sell off of Mahomes and get moved down and get something on top of another running back, or another quarterback. Love plus Kyler plus Dak plus. I would love to do that if you still can with Mahomes. Probably not though, because now all of a sudden everybody's talking about selling Patrick Mahomes. It might be a good time to buy Patrick Mahomes, but everybody seems to be talking about selling Patrick Mahomes now. That everybody's just now realizing that he hasn't been all that productive for the past 20-ish games. So if your league mates are like that too, you might just be being stuck with Patrick Mahomes. Sounds weird to say, because I would still love to have Pat Mahomes on my team. There might just be more optimal moves that you can make with him instead, is kind of how I would look at it. How can you move Mahomes, like I said, for Love plus, Kyler plus, Dak plus, is what I would go about it. Herbert, I think you're just kind of stuck with, unfortunately. Grade Jamie's trade, sold Wicks for a second rounder. I like that. Then the same league sold Reed for Higgins and a first, top 5 to 6 pick. I like that too. I like both those deals a lot. A minus on both of them. This final grade. I like both of them. Rams house dynasty full PPR 1.75 PPR for tight ends. Start 11, 12 team 1-7. Lineup is I think the moves that you should make are continue along the path that you are already on to the 2025 1.01. Uh, maybe if you could find a seller for Justice Hill, then sure. But I mean, the rest of your team is pretty set up for a 2025 build. So there really isn't anything glaringly obvious for me to want. If you could sell maybe Parkinson too to a team that maybe needs a tight end. But other than that, like I don't see any other moves to really make other than just continue losing. Very curious to see how Chubb returns from this injury. I have Ford and believe he's a decently talented back, but we all know Chubb is a beast. I think that Nick Chubb is going to be fine coming back, but he's just not going to be Nick Chubb. You know, like I think that he could be kind of like what Melvin Gordon was with Javonte Williams. So I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be flex worthy. But I don't know if that's what people are expecting out of him. Like he might end up just being Jerome Ford, what Jerome Ford is right now, you know, or like what Bucky or Rashad White are right now. Any of those kind of names might just be what Nick Chubb is. I don't have massive expectations, but yeah, I'm hopeful as I like everybody loves Nick Chubb, myself included. So I'm hopeful that he comes back and just is a beast again. But I have tempered expectations. Bench one for Whiskey Traveler, Burrow, Kyler, and Geno. Geno is the best matchup in my opinion. They're all averaging about the same points. Man. Paulson, help me. Paulson has Kyler ranked QB 8, Geno ranked QB 9, and Burrow ranked QB 11. So, and also just based on this, in terms of adjusted fantasy points to the quarterback position, Geno has the worst matchup of the three, just according to this. Maybe that's because teams blow out the Giants and they just run on them anyway. So maybe that's why. I like Kyler against the Niners. I like Burrow against the Ravens too. If you want to play Geno over Burrow I think would be the one to sit if you wanted to play Geno, but I'd probably just play Kyler and Burrow. But like I said, if you're in on Geno like that, then I'm fine sitting Burrow. I think Kyler is the lock, and I'd go with Burrow. But if you want to play Geno, that's fine. Also, what do you think about my Jacobs and Mason for Bijan trade? It was on the screen, but you got distracted by the. My apologies, my good sir. I got distracted by the crumble cookie. I mean, can you blame me? It's crumble cookie. Have you ever had crumble cookie? I got distracted. Oh, there it was. Yes, it was. Sorry. Jacobs and Mason for Bijan Robinson. I love that deal from a dynasty perspective. I love that. This is kind of what I was talking about with Jordan Mason. How if you're rebuilding, he's a very temporary asset. Even if you're retooling or trying to do something to maybe you might still be able to compete, but maybe not. Moving Jordan Mason, I think, is a great thing to do right now. And you just added to Josh Jacobs. You went up and bought Bijan Robinson. I think this is a great example of how to buy Bijan right now. If anybody is panicking and they are looking for those points, they're looking for those points from Jordan Mason. They're, and you're giving them Josh Jacobs on top of that too. So I'm sorry I got distracted by the crumble cookie, but I do love this. I think this is a fantastic trade, and sets yourself. And honestly, you could do a lot with this too. You could either keep Bijan if he continues to not necessarily produce. You can keep him for 2025, or you could try to see if you could flip him for a, like a top 10 wide receiver. Maybe now can you try to flip Bijan for Rashee Rice? Can you flip Bijan for Garrett Wilson plus Puka, and anything kind of like that is that could be another way to then um, set up your wide receiver spot more and then fill in your running backs last. Um, Maybe that is one move that you could make then. Try to see if you can sell Bijan. Playing Dortch over Singletary, even if he plays, I don't hate it against the Niners. I like it. Do I trade Love and Likely for Mason? I got Bijan, Barkley, Bucky, Ingram, Pitts. You have another. I'm assuming this is redraft. Oh, you have Jaden Daniels. Okay, there it is. Um, I'm not including Isaiah Likely in this. I think Isaiah Likely doesn't necessarily matter. Honestly, he might be cuttable in redraft. Which I'm assuming this is redraft. Uh, I feel like you could get a better running back than Mason. My issue with Mason is that Christian McCaffrey could be back in like 3 or 4 weeks, and Mason just goes completely away. Or even if he doesn't go completely away, now he's Jerome Ford, and he's just getting 50% of the workload, getting by on his talent, but he's not producing, 20 fantasy points per game like he is right now. So I think I would keep Jordan Love and try to flip Love for something better for the remainder of the year. Brian Robinson, David Montgomery, Derrick Henry, those. Henry's probably a bad example, but he just came to my mind. In the dynasty, I had dynasty rankings in my head. So the 4-for-4 trade calculator says that you could maybe trade Jordan Love for I don't know if Zach Moss is any better. Swift is not better. Maybe you get Jacobs or ETN, or I would love B-Rob. Or maybe you could buy low on Mixon right now because I don't think Mixon's playing. I would try to go for a running back that has more longevity for the remainder of the year than Jordan Mason. Was offered Christian Kirk for Jalen Waddle. I would keep Jalen Waddle. Unless this is redraft, then maybe Christian Kirk. But from a dynasty perspective, I'm taking Jalen Waddle pretty easily. Trade Worthy for a first this year all day for a chance to get a tier 1 in the draft. Worthy will never be a volume guy. I don't disagree with this. I just don't think that you need to trade Worthy for a first now. I think that Xavier Worthy in 7 to 8 weeks, even if he's still just the same player that he is right now, but with Rashee Rice out, I still think that you can get a first round pick for Worthy in 7 weeks, same as you could right now. But the upside is that what if Xavier Worthy does really well? And then now you can flip him for maybe 2 firsts, or a first and second, or a first and some other wide receiver. That's where I am with the Xavier Worthy, where I think that it just doesn't make sense to cash out for a first right now, just because people might be interested in buying him with Rashee Rice out. I still think that you can get a first later, but the upside is way higher. My team I thought was a contender is now 1-3. I have the ability to send Evans in a second for Reed or 2 firsts with him for Lamb. Ooh. Man, I love both of these deals. Holy crap. Evans in a second for Reed or Evans in 2 firsts for CeeDee Lamb. I love both of these so much. Is there a way that you could pull both of these off? Like, is there something else on your team that you could include with the 2 firsts to get CeeDee Lamb to where then you trade Evans in a second for Reed? Because I think value wise, I think that's the better deal is Evans in the second for Reed. But if he's open to trading Lamb for 2 firsts and another wide receiver, do you have another wide receiver that you could throw in and substitute Evans with to get the Lamb deal done? Because I'd love to do both of these if you could. I think I would do the Jaden Reed one. I think that is a more of a value win, and it's good to know that he was able to trade CeeDee Lamb. Holy questions! All right, we gotta go a little faster. Would you trade Jalen Waddle for JSN? No, I don't. Redraft, I'll take JSN. Dynasty, I'll take Jalen Waddle. Trade away AJ Brown and Shaheed for DK in a redraft. No, I'll keep AJ Brown. I think AJ Brown comes back next week after this week's bye. So, and I would take AJ Brown over DK. And you're adding to him, which I don't think Shaheed is anything great, but he's been semi-productive. So I would take AJ Brown. Would you buy Trey Tucker on a rebuild? Maybe offer a spare second for Tucker in a third? No, I wouldn't do that. I just don't think. I think Trey Tucker is a benefactor of the circumstances right now. But if they draft another wide receiver next year, he just goes right back to what he was already. I don't think Trey Tucker's any kind of special talent. I don't think he's anything more than a good wide receiver 3 on an NFL team. I just kind of think that's what he is. So I would not pay a second rounder for Tucker plus. How early in the season would you pivot towards 2025? Currently 1-3, and after London went off, projected to lose this week. I got a decent team with injuries. I'm willing to do it right now. And there's a benefit to being one of the first teams to start doing that, to start looking towards 2025, because then you could take advantage of contenders moving their firsts, moving their seconds, making moves before everybody else. Because if you decide in week 7 that it's time to look at 2025, and you're like, all right, what can I buy some contender first for my kind of productive pieces? Well, they might in week 5 or 6 have already sold their first round pick for Brian Robinson, or sold their first for Mike Evans, or, done all that kind of stuff. So now all the firsts are kind of, or most of the firsts are kind of already with the rebuilding teams, and they're not going to sell them for win now assets. So there is a benefit to being one of the first teams to start looking at 2025. And if you're already like this, you're already 1-3, you're projected to lose this week because you face Drake London. You can pull the plug now and start looking at 2025. That's how I go about it. Full PPR, start Dowdle, Sermon, Chandler, or P. Ryan. I will start Sermon if JT is out. I will start P. Ryan. 36. Paulson would say Dowdle if JT is in. I kind of like P. Ryan. I'm worried about Dowdle versus the Steelers defense, and it's in Pittsburgh. But maybe if he scores a touchdown, you're kind of hoping for a touchdown. I'm good with Dowdle. I think the easy answer is Trey Sermon if JT's out. 12-team Superflex PPR start 10, contending but just lost Rice. Would you trade Ayuk for Amari and Deontay? Oh. I was so ready to say don't trade Rashee Rice, and then you hit me with the Ayuk for Amari and Deontay. Don't do this to me, internet. Zach, can you start all of these wide receivers? Like if you break Ayuk down into Amari and Deontay, I don't know what your running backs situation looks like, but then you would have 1, 2, 3. I guess you would have 5, 6, 7. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to breaking down Ayuk like this. For your assuming that you are that much of a contender. You can start up to 5. I meant that more as a start, but like your running back position, I should say. Like, do you have like 3, 4, 5 running backs that you can also start on a weekly basis? Bruce, you saw a crumble cookie in the wild yesterday. Never seen one before. Dude, they're so good. They're crazy. Their cookies are kind of crazy though, but they're so good. And low key, if you've been to a crumble cookie but you've never had their ice cream before, their ice cream is also really good too. So yeah. Taylor was just ruled out for this week. All right, Trey Sermon. Everybody who I answered, if JT is out, plays Trey Sermon, play Trey Sermon this week. RBs aren't great. Gibbs, Connor, Swift, Ford. Okay. So Gibbs and Connor would be your every week guys. Then you would, if you make this deal, you'd have decisions basically between Amari, Deontay, Swift, and Jerome Ford. Ford might be not as startable with Chubb coming back. Um, yeah, I'm fine doing this. Don't do that to me, Whiskey Traveler. I will play Brandon Ayuk over Trey Sermon this week. Final answer. The breakout week is happening, and I don't want to miss it. I don't know how many bad weeks I need to suffer through to get the Ayuk breakout week, but I think this week against the Cardinals could be that. The Cardinals defense is bad. I'll start Ayuk this week. Zach, I'm fine doing this deal. As I had to distract myself from this deal to think about it a little bit more. I'm fine doing this deal. You're every single week you're starting two backs, then JJ, AJ Brown is back there, and 6. Gibbs and Connor every single week, that's 7-8. And then you can start 2 of Amari, Deontay, and Swift, basically. So, yep, I'm cool doing this. And if Rice comes back, then that would be great too at any point during the season. So yeah, I'm cool doing this deal. I don't think you're losing all that much dynasty value for it. I think you're just breaking up and giving yourself more options. So I'm fine with that. IDK what trade value Pacheco has left, if any, but I expect him to come back this year. That said, if he doesn't, I'm looking for running back depth. Would you trade Shaheed and Pacheco for Nick Chubb? Dynasty, definitely not. I feel like you could get something better than Nick Chubb in redraft. I just don't have a lot of confidence for him in terms of like how productive he would be. I know that you need like somebody. Let's see again with the yikes. Pacheco has 2 points on the analyzer. Zach Moss would be that's like perfect on the almost perfect on the 4-for-4 redraft calculator is Shaheed and Pacheco for Zach Moss. If you could do that, I would love that. I don't even hate it for Devin Singletary. Najee's on that list. Swift is on this list. Could you buy low on maybe you could just get Jonathan Brooks instead, or maybe it's Rachaad White. I don't love Rachaad White, but I think these are better options than Nick Chubb. So if you can get any of those guys instead, I would rather try to do that. But if this is Dynasty, I'm keeping Pacheco for sure. If that's Dynasty for you. Need a last flex decision. Do I go with Hunt or Worthy? Love this every Friday. Thanks as always. Thank you, Mark. I will go with crap, dude. See, this is another reason why, from a dynasty like roster construction standpoint, I like consolidating because I just don't like having start-sit decisions. So that's why another reason to consolidate is so you don't have to make start-sit decisions like this. Kareem Hunt is flex 36 and Xavier Worthy's flex 37. That's a pretty substantial difference that Paulson has for his projections. I was already leaning towards Kareem Hunt just because of the touch floor. So assuming that Hunt maintains the role that he had last week. So I'm good with starting Kareem Hunt. Wicks in a projected late first for Rashee Rice. Say no more. Rashee Rice. Done. Honest outlook from Bijan rest of season. He's killing me. I think that he is a back end RB1 still. I think that we need to, for at least for 2024, he's no longer the top 3, top 5 guy that we thought he would be. But I still think that he's a back end RB1, like RB11, RB12. He's going to have upside when he scores touchdowns. He still catches passes out of the backfield. It's just that the yardage hasn't necessarily been there. The touchdowns really haven't been there either. So I would just reframe your expectations for Bijan Robinson. In Dynasty, he's still a top 3 Dynasty running back, but for redraft, I think that he becomes much more tradable for guys that are producing really well right now. And if you got to add to get to Jahmyr Gibbs, if you got to move over to a Brian Robinson or a David Montgomery, if you try to explore something to get Aaron Jones plus or something like that for the name of Bijan Robinson, then I think that those are trades that you should be more willing to do, I think, in a redraft standpoint. Dynasty, again, I'm not really all that panicked on him for Dynasty, but I think shifting our mentality to consider Bijan as a back end RB1, it sucks, but I think that's what we've got to do. What should I be doing? I'm 1-3 with this on your team. Yeah, if this is redraft, right? Remember, this is so as long as this is oh every week, man. Have background on. Am I back? Am I back? All right, cool. We're slowly getting back there. Is this hopefully this happened last week as well, and it was just like one big lag spike, and then I was. This is what I don't understand. I am. Figure yourself out. This is his pet peeve in life when the internet doesn't work. This happens. This happens just during this Friday. I have no issues whatsoever all week. Literally from Friday from 2 p.m. until Friday at 12 p.m. Like that whole week, minus this 2-hour stretch every Friday, my internet is perfect. When I play video games, it is perfect. I don't have lag. When we're doing anything else, when I'm recording on StreamYard online with Russ or anything else for during the week, totally fine. It's just like, oh, hey, you're streaming Friday, same time every week. We're just going to crap out on you. So I'm back now. Where were we? Peanut bread. Is this redraft is like my number one question. Trax is going to have like a internet counter for me because Trax is the one every single week who's like, hey, you need new internet. Hey, you need new internet. I'm close, man. But that's like if the internet wasn't as bad, if the internet was also that bad, the rest of the I'll hop off the phone so you can use the internet. I'm barely old enough to know that reference, by the way. But if the internet was bad like that the rest of the week, then I would be switching so much faster. It's just this specific time every single Friday. It's so annoying. Redraft 12-team full PPR. Yeah, I'm in full agreement that I think one of your quarterbacks should be moved for a running back. Fully agree there. And if you can get a running back, then I think that solves a lot of the other issues because you'll have Bijan and Barkley. Barkley's off the bye. Smith comes in for Worthy. And you have a flex asset with the running back that you would then trade Love or Jaden Daniels for. And I agree that I'd rather trade Jordan Love. After that, maybe you could then trade Bucky and Worthy for somebody. Like, could you trade find a team maybe that could use a little bit of an extra starter or something like that? Trade Bucky and Worthy for yikes. For Pickens, BTJ, Josh Jacobs, Stephon Diggs, like somebody along that line, like that could give yourself another flex asset. So then all of a sudden you have Jaden Daniels every week, Bijan, Saquon, London, Higgins, um, Devonta Smith, and then your tight end. And then there's your starters. And then you also on your bench then have the extra running back depth of whoever you traded Jordan Love for, and then the extra upside player of whoever you traded Bucky and Xavier Worthy for. That's how I would go about it. Because I think this is a really good team. You're going to be competing for sure. It's just how can you give yourself the best possible assets every single week? And maybe it's upgrading off of Higgins, or upgrading off of Devonta Smith to get you up into the Lamb or Amon Ra or Malik Neighbors or the Jamar Chase kind of tier. If you could do that with Bucky and Devonta Smith and get one of those guys, or Jordan Love and T Higgins for one of those guys, that could be something that you would look at too. Who would you trade Zay Flowers for on a rebuilding team? I would flip him for a 25 first, kind of hit reset on the 25 rookie class, or Tank Dell plus, Waddle plus, Ayuk plus, Pickens plus, any of those guys. I would add to him to go up to get to Jaden Reed or somebody like that. Like add a second if you can get to Jaden Reed and do that. But that Zay Flowers is still a really good rebuilding asset too. So I wouldn't actively try to like fire sale him, but I do think that there are more optimal pieces to have at the wide receiver position than Flowers. So I agree with you on that. And it would probably be somebody like Ayuk or Waddle or Higgins or Tank Dell or Jaden Reed, somebody along those lines. Would you do like Mahomes, Wilson, Dowdle for Murray, B-Rob, and Puka? Absolutely. Yep. Mahomes and Kyler, that's a great pivot. Upgrade Wilson to Puka, upgrade Dowdle to Brian Robinson. This is perfect, man. I love that so much. Crumble is whack. I mean, I won't disagree. A good homemade cookie is really freaking good too, but and crumble cookies are a little expensive too. But man, some of those crumble cookies are just so they're so good, and we don't have anything like that around here. Like we got to go out to like Pittsburgh or somewhere to get what's that other? There's another cookie chain that's like that. I can't remember what it is. It'll hit me. Is it Insomnia cookies? Yeah. Oh, there's one in State College. Never mind. That's Insomnia is the other one. But we don't like you got to go like 45 minutes away to even get to that. We don't have anything else like that around here. So getting crumble will be fun. Need a running back dynasty. Chase for Hall and Braylon Allen. No, I would rather just have Jamar Chase. I think if you need a running back, I'd be trying to find cheaper ways to get that running back asset. Like I think that you don't need to go straight for one of your top players on your team and instead go for the cheaper guys like a Tony Pollard, like a Ramondre Stevenson, like a Aaron Jones, James Conner, anybody kind of in that kind of range, because and especially with the way that Breece Hall has been producing, or at least he produced last week, but you could probably still get 75, 80, 85% of the Breece Hall production for 50 to 60% of the cost, or maybe even cheaper instead of trading away Jamar Chase. That is how, if you need a running back and you're competing, I don't want to mortgage my best assets. I want to use lower tiered assets to kind of like think of it. This is not a really amazing comparison, but it kind of is. Let's say your car crapped out and you needed a new car. You would be saying, oh, how can I scrounge together a few $1,000s to buy myself a beater, or, go to grab like a car loan for something else, but you don't want to go grab a car loan for some $50,000-$60,000 car. Grab a car loan for like a $20,000 car. You know what I'm trying to say? Instead, that's how you would approach going to buy a car. You would not say, let me sell my house and downgrade it at my house to go then also buy a car, or take out like a massive HELOC or something like that to go buy a car. Like that. That comparison does and does not work. That's but that's what I want to be doing with running backs in dynasty because I view running backs as shorter term, less reliable, uh, less valuable, depreciating assets like vehicles in real life versus receivers and quarterbacks and superflex are, like real estate properties. That's the comparison. No one's selling in my league for cheaper assets. If that's the case, then I just wouldn't sell. I still wouldn't sell Jamar Chase then. I understand that standpoint that nobody's really buying or nobody's really selling. So it's hard for you to buy unless you pay some massive thing. But Jamar Chase just makes way more sense from a dynasty perspective and then going out and get Brees Hall. Why buy a car when you can steal one for free? That's how I played down. Hey, you know, that's what I meant. Like that comparison, like does and doesn't work. Where am I at? Way up here. What do I do with Bijan Dynasty if my team is loaded and I'm going to be 5-0? Your team is freaking loaded. How can you break Bijan down? Can you move down to a Kenneth Walker, to a See, that's the issue though with running backs right now is that they all suck. At least from a dynasty standpoint, like there's so many that just feel like their production is really only for this year. Some of them are hurt. Other ones don't give you enough production, so it's too far of a drop down. I'd probably just keep Bijan Robinson because here's the picture that I could paint for you here. You're 5-0 with really no help from Bijan. Imagine if Bijan starts actively producing as what we thought he would be as a top 5, top 3 kind of guy. Imagine how much better your team is going to be with Bijan actually helping you. Right now he's, just like a sled dog that is not really pulling his weight. Everybody else is doing all that. But like, imagine if he actually kicks it in and crushes it from here on out. So not to say that you can't trade Bijan away, but you just got to be smart about who you get back. I don't even think he's all that much of a sell now, especially from your team, because your team is just so good. Bijan is a luxury at this point. So it might just be better just to hold on to Bijan Robinson. And maybe you might just need to be smarter, not to say smarter, but maybe you need to reframe your mentality on what kind of running back he is right now. And that might, change some of your start sit decisions moving forward. But your team is stacked, dude. And I feel like, I would just hold on to Bijan. Are there any cheaper or smart running back targets that you think a rebuilding team should target or just solely through draft picks, for example? Thinking trying to get Marshawn Lloyd for cheap. Lloyd, I think, is a good one. Trey Benson is a really good one. I talked about him in the lessons learned video from Wednesday. His KTC value right now is RB28. So if this is a very specific situation, but if Trey Benson is on a competing team and they're looking for more points now and they're willing to use Trey Benson to get it, you could take advantage of that. Might not be the case in your league, but for others out there, maybe they could find their way into a Trey Benson. Jalen Wright is another one as well. Bucky and Braylon would be really fun. Tank Bigsby might be another good one too, depending on what happens with ETN. His 5th-year option was picked up, but Andy Holloway from the Fantasy Footballers talked about maybe he's a trade candidate in the NFL. There really isn't any good like veteran buys right now outside of those kind of guys. Like I do like Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright, Trey Benson, Tank Bigsby. That's Tyjae Spears is maybe another one too. Because he's been kind of hurt and hasn't done all that much. Audric Estime could be another one. And yeah, that's probably it. Other than that, first round picks or early seconds to get rookies next year is kind of it would be the play. I have Achan on a rebuilding team having a hard time finding anyone interested in him. Who should I be targeting? As a rebuilder, it should be wide receivers. With Achan. Where is he on here? Again, at least according to KTC, this is not conducive maybe to your league, but he is in the AJ Brown, Puka, Garrett Wilson, Brian Thomas Jr., Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed range. If you can get any of those guys for Achan, that would be phenomenal. I'd also, again, Ayuk plus, Waddle plus, Higgins plus, DK Metcalf, Drake London. Those would be, that's how I would be trying to sell Achan. If you can find a contender that could use a running back like that maybe is upset at Ayuk or upset at T. Higgins or anything like that, that's how I would go about it. I would think holding would there was also that too. Then maybe you just hold him until Tua comes back and then his production skyrockets back up. Oh, sorry, Jacob. What about Whittington in a first for Brooks in a second? I would take Brooks in the second there for sure. Brooks in the second. Waddle for JSN and Dynasty. Feel like a pick would need to be attacked. Yeah, I agree. I would take Jalen Waddle over JSN for sure. Would you trade Flowers and Tank Dell for Garrett Wilson in Dynasty Superflex? Yes, I would. I had to think about it a little bit, but yes, I would. I would still take Garrett Wilson there. What is the current value of Chuba Hubbard in Dynasty? I think 1 second is it. I don't think you're getting any more than that because people know that Jonathan Brooks is coming back. But I think people will be willing to pay 1 second round pick for him because of the production he's had the past couple weeks and maybe could have for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks when with Brooks kind of on his way back. So I think 1 second would do it. We're down to the Ramondre or Trey Sermon this week. Oh, good question. I think I might play Sermon there. Paulson has Ramondre slightly ahead by half a fantasy point. But that Miami, but the Jaguars defense too, man. I think I would play Ramondre Stevenson because at least with Ramondre, I have more confidence in his role and his usage. So I think I'd play Ramondre there over Trey Sermon. Is sending Diggs too much for Benson in Dynasty? There probably is something that could be attached to Benson on that. Maybe you might still get a second with Benson for Stephon Diggs, depending on how desperate the other team is for the points from Diggs. I'd probably aim for a second. Benson in a second for Diggs. Even if it was like a 26 second, that's still worth it, especially if you're rebuilding. I think that there should be some sort of plus with Benson. Would you trade Bijan for Rashee Rice plus? Absolutely, dude. I'll take Rashee Rice and Aaron Jones. You might get more production out of Aaron Jones. Yeah, Rice and Aaron Jones, absolutely. Sermon over Swift. Swift against Carolina. I'll play Swift still. Similar reasoning for the Ramondre. I am less confident in Swift's usage and role. Hopefully last week was indicative of what the Bears want to do with DeAndre moving forward. So I would play Swift over Sermon. Would you move him for McConkey in a first, or what would you look to get for him? No, I would not move Rice for McConkey in a first. Maybe I'm just so much higher on Rashee Rice, but I am not worried about this injury from a dynasty perspective. Not worried about the suspension from a dynasty perspective. The family drama, I don't care about what his mom did. And hopefully he learned from his speeding issue that I just really like. And I'm not a big Ladd McConkey fan. I'm not opposed to doing some sort of a breakdown trade like this, but it has to be somebody that's better than Ladd McConkey, in my opinion. It has to be Ayuk or Waddle or Pickens or T. Higgins or London in a second, DK Metcalf, any of that kind of stuff. So maybe this trade, I think specifically, is my love for Rashee and my semi dislikeness of Lad McConkey. Any idea when CMC might be back? Is it time to sell Mason to a lower team for pot? If you can get a first for Jordan Mason, I have no idea when CMC might be back. I have like literally none. I think my hope is by the beginning of November, in a few weeks. So like week 8, 9. But that is all just like complete speculation right now. If you're not competing and you have Jordan Mason, you can get a first. That is 100% a must do. If you're competing, I would like to sell Jordan Mason for a first, even if you are a contender. If you are reliant upon Mason and you're only getting a 26 or 27 first, I say only, like that's such a terrible thing. But like if somebody's like, hey, I'll give you a 27 first for Jordan Mason, but you're contending and you need Mason, then I'd probably just hold on to him. If it was a 25 first, I probably would sell. 26 first I'd probably sell. Because then the other fear is that's the cash out price right now. What happens if Jordan Mason gets hurt? Which then all his value will be lost too, and then you lost that ability to get the first. So there's that. I think the 27 first, I'd hold Jordan Mason. If it was 25, 26 first, I'd probably just cash out now. Just trade JSN 25 and 26 thirds for CMC. Woo! I already have Mason. I'm wide receiver heavy, and a contender still have Chase. Wow, dude. I mean, that's the way to go buy Christian McCaffrey. There's really not all that much opportunity cost with JSN and a couple thirds. Then you have the receivers to afford it too. This is a high upside, high ceiling move. I like that a lot. I will start Trey Sermon over Jerome Ford, though. Someone offered me Ray Davis for Deshaun Watson in a Superflex redraft. Send dumb offers, you'll get dumb counters. Yeah, that's bad. Waddle or Worthy for flex. I'll go with Jalen Waddle against the Patriots defense. And if you want Paulson's backup, Paulson has Waddle. Where is Waddle? Control F. Wide receiver 48, and he's got Worthy wide receiver 39. Paulson would say Worthy. They're separated by 1.5 points. If you need, this might be the more correct answer. If you just need some fantasy points, like 5, 6, 7, then I'd probably just play Waddle. If you need upside, or maybe you faced Darnell Mooney or Drake London last night, then definitely play Xavier Worthy. That might be the other way. I feel like in 60, 70% of cases, I'm fine playing Xavier Worthy in that. But if you just, like, if you had Drake London and you're like, oh, I don't want a donut from Worthy just in case, then I might play Waddle. Redraft trade Pickens and Ayuk for Amon-Ra. I kind of need the starters this week is a problem. But it's Amon-Ra. Who's on waivers, I think, is the other question. So if you do this deal, you get Amon-Ra, who's on a bye week. So you get Amon-Ra for the remainder of the year post-bye. That's a massive plus, just on the terms of the fact that you can consolidate and get a great starter in Amon-Ra too. Another plus. But then who would be on waivers that you could then pick up and start this week for Pickens or Ayuk or anything like that? Rebuilding, should I trade Olave for a 25 first and Shaheed? Yes. I would move Olave for a 25 first. I would rather have DK Metcalf than Chris Olave, and I would trade Olave for a first and Shaheed. Redraft Superflex, Marvin Harrison, BTJ, DJ Moore, Trevor Lawrence. Start 2 wide receivers, Superflex, Lawrence or Moore. I'm fine starting Trevor Lawrence this week. They have a really, really good matchup. He's actually currently in my DraftKings lineup. So I would play Trevor Lawrence in your Superflex spot because I think his like low floor game is a semi-solid game for DJ Moore. And then I would start Marvin Harrison Jr. and Brian Thomas Jr. I'd start BTJ with the stack with Lawrence. So Marv, BTJ, Trevor Lawrence, sit DJ Moore. Pick 2, Garrett Wilson, Scary Terry, Christian Kirk. Ooh. I think I want Wilson and Christian Kirk. Let's see what Paulson says. Garrett Wilson's wide receiver 21. McLaurin is wide receiver 22. Kirk is wide receiver 26. Great. They're all projected around like 12 and a half fantasy points. Thanks, Paulson. McLaurin might get shadowed by the Browns defense, though. Not to say that that's necessarily stopped. Like Washington's offenses look fantastic, so it might not matter. But I think I would play Wilson and Christian Kirk for my 2 and sit Terry McLaurin against the Browns defense. I got T for Flowers last week. Let's go. Love T Higgins. Redraft standard, give Adams for BTJ. Feel like Adams is more valuable, but also need points now. I would take Brian Thomas Jr. And I don't know if Adams is more valuable. Maybe on a namesake he would be, but BTJ is scoring well. And I think we'll continue to score well. So I'll take BTJ. Should I drop Pittsburgh's defense to pick up the Vikings defense? Their defense is 6 and 7 this week. Beautiful. Hold on. My next question is they then play. Ooh. The next 3 games for the Steelers are pretty juicy. They get the Raiders, the Jets, and the Giants. Ooh. And then the next 3 for the Vikings. They have a bye next week. Then they play the Lions. Yikes. No, I would just keep Pittsburgh. I'd keep Pittsburgh, play them against Dallas, then you'll get them for the next 3 weeks, and then you can figure out what to do with the bye. Any trade recommendations for a 3 wide receiver, 2 flex, 1 super flex? Camera. It is Dynasty. That's good. That's good. Are you competing? Like, what is your record? Maybe I should say. And do you have a new or any like a points for, like where you are in points for? I'd imagine you're probably at least 2 and 2. Yeah, you are competing. Yeah, I would imagine so. At Jefferson and Lamb, and you've got Gibbs 3 and 1 in most points for. Let's go. All right. I think I would like to see what you could do with your quarterback position with Darnold, Fields, and Carr and Daniel Jones. I'd like to see what you could do to maybe upgrade one of them to possibly set yourself up for more longevity, because it feels like you don't have a lot of longevity with your quarterback room. H.M. Mason. 1, 2, 3. Could you trade? Maybe you can entice somebody with a stack. Could you entice someone with a Fields Pickens stack and get who could you get with that? Dak? No. Yeah, you're not getting Jane Daniels for that stupid keep trade cut. Yeah, you might be able to get Dak. Or Kyler or somebody. Do you think that's possible to then to toss someone out the Pickens Fields stack and see if you can upgrade your quarterback spot? Because I don't want to touch Jefferson, Lamb for sure. Don't want to touch Gibbs really. Mason could be expendable, but he's very useful, I think, right now for you with your competing team, unless you get something really crazy. Cup is a nice asset to have for whenever he comes back. You got a really solid team here, dude. It would just be what's the cheapest but best quarterback upgrade that you can make that you could go up to a Dak Prescott or a man, Dak is that far behind. Holy crap. Or a Joe Burrow or a Kyler Murray. What would be the cheapest that you can get maybe to one of those three using any of your four quarterbacks that they desire the most out of those? If they want Carr because he produced well at the beginning of the year, if they want Darnold because he's the QB2, guy who has Kyler's very greedy with his trades and draft picks that he wants, so maybe it's not Kyler. Dak or Burrow, because Dak could be fun because then Dak gets you the stack with Lamb, and I feel like he's the least expensive of the three in order to go try. Oh, Love would be a good one too. Maybe try to approach him with, does he want Pickens and his favorite quarterback? And does that get you Burrow or Love? Or do you got to add a second? Or do you got to add a Dontavian Wicks? Do you got to add Kareem Hunt to do that? You know, that's, I think, how I would go about it. If you have like specific questions on that, then we're almost nearing the end of the questions, so I'll see them more recently now too. Would you trade Jettas for Cup and Neighbors? Redraft, yes. Dynasty, probably also yes. Oh man, Jefferson's just so good, but Neighbors is so freaking good too. I think Cup is worth it. I think I'd probably do that. Is it crazy to say that Watson and Herbert are in the same tier for quarterbacks because they're similar in points per game, a similar contract situation, even though one is older? I don't know if they're in the same tier, but they're very close because I still think that people don't love Deshaun Watson, and I know that people don't love Justin Herbert right now because of the production, but at least Justin Herbert has name value to him, had the production before more recently that wasn't on a different team. It's just, I think people know that Justin Herbert's situation sucks right now, and Deshaun Watson might just not be good. So I would say that they're maybe not too far apart from a dynasty standpoint, but I don't know if they're in the same tier. I think I would have Herbert above. Herbert a tier above. BTJ, Pittman, Wicks, or JSN. I will take BTJ out of these four. If it's just the way that I would rank this is I would go BTJ, JSN, BTJ, Pittman with Flacco, JSN. Oh, no. Is that not how I would do it? BTJ, Pittman with Flacco. Yeah, JSN, Wicks, Pittman with Anthony Richardson. I don't know. Is Anthony Richardson playing this weekend? I don't know. I have no idea. BTJ was my start of these four, though. I was looking to get any second for Hubbard last week. I was offered Connor. Yeah, I remember you saying this last week. So yeah, I forget who asked about Chuba, but if you can get a second plus, that'd be phenomenal. Just traded Purdy, Dell, and Ford for Marv, Dobbs, and Fields. Well, you got Marvin Harrison Jr. I like it. Honestly, I like both sides. But I think the best player in this deal by far is Marvin Harrison Jr. So give me Marv. 12 team Superflex start 10. No 25 first, 1 and 3. Wow, you're 1 and 3. Oh my gosh. Can you get your 25 first back? Would be my question. Because if you can't get your 25 first back, there's really no sense in starting to shed some of this. Like, I would hold on to Pacheco. I would sell Kareem Hunt, though, for sure. um, Hunt would be gone. But yeah, without your 25 first, it kind of makes less sense to um, kind of start looking towards 2025. So that's kind of the issue. Kareem Hunt automatically gone. Can you get your first back? Would be my next question. If you can, then I'd probably sell. I think Chuba honestly could get sold then too. Chuba and Kareem Hunt can be gone, and then we can try to figure out how to upgrade Deshaun Watson to a better quarterback. Because your wide receiver room is really good. It's just maybe not the year for that. You got Njoku and Kraft. Um, Aaron Rodgers is good to go. Just seeing an update that Flacco's taking majority of first team. Okay, so Michael Pittman's probably a good start this week then with Joe Flacco. Leave it to Flacco to unlock offenses and players. But yeah, David, I would try to get your 25 first back. Hunt and probably Chuba. Hunt for sure should be gone by the end of next week. Chuba, maybe you have a few weeks on Chuba if you want to. Trying to trade Ayuk in a late 25 second for DK in a 12-team Superflex full PPR dynasty. I like it. I like it on both sides, but yeah, I would trade away Ayuk in a second for DK. I like it a lot. Have Josh Allen, Kyler, and Trevor Lawrence. Is there any good tier down for T-Law in a Superflex league that I should be targeting? I think, yeah. So I think with the quarterback room that you have now, basically T-Law is pretty expendable because you're never going to play him over Josh Allen and Kyler anyway. So what can you do to try to move down to a quarterback that can get you longer term upside and maybe something on top? So I'm looking at JJ McCarthy, I think would be one. If you can get McCarthy plus for Trevor Lawrence, that would be great. I don't know if you can get the plus for that. Drake May would be another one. Michael Penix would be another one. And then maybe you could buy like a Bo Nix would be the other four. Did I just name all rookies? All rookies. The four rookie quarterbacks that are not Daniels and Caleb would be, if you can get a plus on top of any of them for Trevor Lawrence, I would do that. Because I don't think it, like, if you could trade down to a Matthew Stafford or a Geno Smith or a Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr and get something on top, Deshaun Watson and get something on top, but and I'm fine with doing that because they probably don't have any additional upside that Trevor Lawrence also doesn't really have either. So it's really just to have a QB3. But if you want a potential QB3 who could then also gain a lot of value, it would be the rookies then, if you can get a plus on top of them. Who is Aaron Shamplin? I don't even know either. Who is it? Oh, this is the kid from he's the Steeler running back. I remember because I had to look him up during the game last week with the Colts. I had to look him up because Cordell Patterson got hurt and Jalen Warren was out. And I was like, who the heck is this number 33 kid on the Steelers? I had no idea who he was. Out of Harvard, bro. Oh, man. Steelers. I hate the Steelers. I'm a Steelers fan. I hate the Steelers. Rice or London in Dynasty, I'm 4-4 and have one of the strongest rosters. Just have been unlucky in needing a guy. I think if you need the points now to take Drake London, I would take Rice over London in a vacuum. But if you want the points now, I'm fine with taking Drake London. Start Justice, Roschon, or Tracy if Singletary's a no-go. I'll start Tyron Tracy, but I like Justice Hill too. Wicks will feed families with his targets per route run. 1-3, but second in points, 4 in potential points. Upgrade or stay put. your wide receiver room is so good. Yeah, you need to if you can upgrade again. It's basically the same formula for you, Nick, as it was for Ryan. Is how can you upgrade off of Fields for a long term quarterback? Same prescription. Burrow, Dak, um, Kyler would be the way that I would go about it. Um, and if you could use, um, who can you use to do that? Ayuk, maybe Ayuk and Fields to move up to one of the, or Ayuk and Singletary, maybe. I would just try to 2 or 3 for 1 up to a better quarterback than off of Justin Fields. Uh, what to do? So many questions about what to do. Uh, yeah, you're stuck with Herbert and Watson. Um, can you? What picks do you have, Tracks? Oh, there you go. 3. Never mind. I asked the question, and it's the next thing. Tingley, I'd start Pittman if assuming that Flacco plays, I would start Michael Pittman this week. Sorry, Trax, I'm coming back to you. I get distracted easily. I'm just a little worried about the Bears defense. Slightly, a little worried about it. Paulson has them separated by 1.5 in projections, but I don't know if that is considering the unknownness of Richardson versus Flacco. But I like Pittman against the Jaguars defense a lot more than I do Deontay against the Bears defense with what I saw from Flacco last week. All right. 3 firsts, 2 seconds, 3 thirds. I think you could try to do something at the running back position. Again, it's like going after a Monty. Maybe Monty's a good one right now because he's on a bye this week. So you'll get him. He won't have a bye moving forward, obviously. But you won't have to worry about a bye week with Monty if you were to buy him now. But, again, Brian Robinson, or you can buy low on a Tony Pollard or an Aaron Jones, somebody that's on a rebuilding kind of team. I don't mind using Mahomes or Herbert in one of the first to like move up to Joe Burrow or move up to Kyler. Again, that would be another thing that if you identified the rebuilding teams and what quarterbacks they had, that you could maybe pull that off if you can. Or if you could do the Mahomes for Love plus or Kyler plus or Dak plus, you could do that same thing with Mahomes. Those would kind of be the moves that I'd be looking to make. I don't think I would really touch your wide receiver position because it's fantastic. But quarterback and running back, if you could use a couple of your picks, just try to upgrade a little bit. Same boat as Dave. Everybody's wide receiver rooms just look so great. Jordan, I'm gonna tell you the hardest thing that you could do right now. Wait. I would just wait on this. Like you could trade Jordan Mason if you go 1-4 because you played against Drake London last night. You could trade Jordan Mason then. But there really is not anything else I think that you could really do. Maybe you could pivot off of DJ Moore for somebody younger, go from Moore to Ayuk or Waddle, or you already have T. Higgins. But get a little bit younger, maybe at the wide receiver position. But this just might not be your year, man. And that sucks. You can maybe trade one of the quarterbacks too, because you have 3 of them. But this just might not be your year, and that sucks. But your team is still so good. It's so extremely valuable that I'm going to tell you the hardest thing to do is to just not do anything other than making the micro moves like I mentioned with Mason and DJ Moore and maybe one of the quarterbacks. Debo maybe could be traded then too. So those 3 guys, and maybe a quarterback, and then wait. So it's so hard to do. Patience sucks. It's the hardest thing to do in Dynasty, but it's such an underrated skill if you're able to practice it effectively in Dynasty too. You wouldn't be able to get your 25 first back unless I trade one of my top receivers, which I really don't want to do. I still think if my team starts clicking, I can make a playoff run. I do agree that like you're kind of in the same boat as Jordan, where like if things start to go the right way, you could do that. I would not use any 26 firsts that you have. If you still have your 26 first, I would not use it to try to salvage the season. But I do agree that like if your team starts to work together, that it could potentially make a playoff run. But I also think that if you get into November and you're 3-5, 3-6 at that point in November, 2-5, 2-6, that you might just need to start trading guys. I think Kareem Hunt should be gone before the end of next week. But maybe you just do another thing, just like I said with Jordan, is you just maybe just sit and wait and just see what happens over the next couple of weeks and see how your teams go. Got offered Debo for my AJ Brown and Shaheed. What? You have to add to AJ Brown to get Debo? That's crazy. No, keep AJ Brown. Do you like Kyler's matchup? Would you rather start Fields, Geno, or Deshaun Watson? I actually do like Kyler's matchup this week against the Niners, so I would play Kyler. Adams just posted a picture of Edgar Allan Poe, Baltimore? Question mark? Very interesting. That would suck though from a fantasy standpoint for him to go to Baltimore. I want to see it. What do you just post? Wait, I don't see it. Where is it like a story? That would be interesting though. What do you offer for Mark Andrews right now in Dynasty? So somebody messaged me on Twitter and they said that they were able to trade a 25 third for Mark Andrews, and I would do that instantly. 25 third or 2/3 or anything else like that. And bada boom, then you get Mark Andrews. How do you deal with league mates who are very picky with trades and overvalue their players massively? Yeah, that's such a struggle. And I feel like that's kind of accentuated by being in like home leagues, because I feel like maybe some casual players are just more, they clutch onto their things a little bit harder, or they clutch onto shorter term performances and production a little bit harder. I have that in my home dynasty league. There's a couple managers in that league that I know are like, you're like looking and you're trying to see if you could buy this one player that you like, and you're like, oh crap, he's on that team. You know, you have that reaction whenever you try to see which player is on what team. Like the easy answer is just to not trade with them, and then that means that their teams get worse over time because they can't trade with anybody else, or trying to find an in with some players that maybe they overvalue some players on a specific team that they like, or that they overvalue the shorter term production, or that they overvalue one specific position, anything along those lines, that if you can try to take advantage of that, it may not happen a lot, but if they're very judgmental is the wrong word, but like if they are like, oh, screw Mark Andrews, like Mark Andrews is the easy example, but like last year, I know a lot of people, and I got a lot of people saying that like they hated T. Higgins last year because he was just constantly hurt. If you could take advantage of that, if they hate like Jalen Waddle or Brandon Ayuk right now because they're not producing, you could try to take advantage of that. Yeah, like Big Stewie said, like buy the lows. But like, yeah, I do that. That reaction sucks so much whenever you're like, oh, I want to go buy player X. What team is he on? Oh, he's on that team. Well, can't get him. That sucks so much. But the easy answer really is just to not trade with them. And then hopefully they get the message because they're not doing trades while you are doing trades with everybody else, and everybody else is doing trades with each other and you and not them. Activity will spurn activity, or at least it should help to spurn more activity. So if they see that, then maybe they're a little bit more willing just to get something done and let go of some of their overvaluedness. Are you buying Caleb even if you are contending and he be one of your starters in Superflex? I would if you could trade, like if you can trade up from a Trevor Lawrence or trade up from maybe some other Justin Herbert, maybe anybody like that, then I'm not opposed to it. If this is that same roster, Nick, that where was that? Yeah, like if you were upgrading from Fields to Caleb, I probably would be willing to do that. Even if he is one, because it's still the long term. You're still playing for the long term as well. Is Pacheco a good trade target for a team competing next year? Yeah, I don't mind that. If you can get him for less than a first, I would do that to go buy Pacheco. Or if you could give somebody some short term production now, Mason and a second for Pacheco, I don't mind that. And you get Pacheco for 2025. I like it. Would you trade Love and Collins for Fields, Pickens, and Jacobs? He was interested in Jacobs earlier this week, so I thought about offering him up. Love and Nico? Nico Collins? Is there any other Collins? I can't think of any other. I think that is a wild ask. I mean, I would 100% love taking Love and Nico Collins. Like, yes, yeah. I would trade Fields, Pickens, and Jacobs for Love and Nico in a heartbeat. I would trade Fields, Pickens, and Jacobs for just Nico Collins. And I would also do it for. Maybe I wouldn't do it all three of them for Jordan Love. I would need something kicked back. Maybe Love and Nico is insane. Yes, if you can get Love and Nico for that, absolutely. I would add to your side to get to that side too. Sheesh. I love Nico Collins so much, man. Sold Yoshi high for a 25 third. Yeah, I don't mind that. I think that works. Especially if it's an earlier third. I like that a lot. The only downside would be like if they let T. Higgins walk and they want somebody else because they liked Yoshi. But even then, I still don't think you're getting a second for him. So I think this is a good one. I'm sent internet, dude. Do it, Genji. See what happens. Come on, internet. Am I still here? I have no idea if I'm even still here because it's on my internet is bad. Let's see. I see you. Okay, cool. With the team that I have, would you make a trade including Mahomes and Herbert for Murray and Burrow and somehow get a running back of his too? Like camera. All my equipment is failing me now. Mahomes and Herbert plus for Murray and Burrow and somehow get a running back of his too, like Jacobs, Cook, B-Rob, Jones. So you would trade Mahomes and Herbert for Murray and Burrow. Yeah, I would do that. If you get a running back on top, depending on what the plus is too. I like the idea of this trade. I like it. Jamie got a trade offer of sending Bigsby for Wicks. Nah. Oh yeah, Ryan, we got you. We got you, bro. Tinkley start Fields, Flacco, or Trevor Lawrence. I think I'll start Fields of that group. Let's see what Paulson says. Paulson agrees with me. He would start Justin Fields. Flacco's, I don't know if Flacco's on here yet. I don't think he is. Lawrence is 15 though. Fields is 6. So yeah, Fields. Christian Kirk or Wandale? I'll start Wandale with Neighbors out. What's a decent value to sell Javonte at? Basically like any second, I think. If you can get any second, I think that's fine. If it's 25, 26, 27, just cash out on Javonte. It sucks. I wanted so much more for him than what we got right now, but I think that's where we're at. That you just got to take the second for Javonte because more people are going to want the second than they will Javonte, and it's probably going to be easier to use that second to them in a package deal or something like that. And it's also more flexible. That if Javonte were to get hurt again, his value would crash. So it sucks. All right, we've been going for over 2 hours now. I see Shownaker 17 tried to start a question, and then maybe hit the enter button a little too soon. I know the phone will get you if you're trying to type it out and put it on a different line, and then you hit enter, and it sends the message instead of going down the line. Let's see. Do we have any more news? No more news. Shownaker, I have. Oh, is K9 starting? He should be. He was a limited practice still. I think he's playing this week. Would you add a second to Javonte for Mixon? Yeah, if you're competing, I would do that. Maybe Mixon for that one. And then hopefully he stays healthy. Shownaker, I don't know where we went with this, but the internet symbol is coming back on, and so I probably need to call it soon. All right. No internet symbol. So this might be a good time to call it here after 2 hours and 13 minutes. Are you scared for Neighbors' health long term? The concussion hit didn't seem to be anything special. No, I'm not worried about Neighbors whatsoever. It's just it's not even a bump in the road. It's like a pebble that you hit. So the internet's telling you a sign. The internet's saying that I went on for way too long, and my camera's starting to overheat now too. 2 hours and 13 minutes. We're getting the upper limits of what I can handle. Dude, the internet here is trash. I'm so close to switching to Xfinity, but the one company here had a monopoly on this area for so long that we just got Xfinity like 5 months ago to be available in this area. So the switch might be happening. We'll see what happens. But I appreciate you guys for hanging out for the past over 2 hours on this great Friday afternoon. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Friday, a fantastic weekend. And hope you win all of your matchups or lose your matchups if you want to lose them in Dynasty because you're rebuilding. But appreciate each and every one of you. Again, if I did not answer your question or you have any more questions, follow-up questions, drop them down into the chat after this or into the comment section after the replay of this as if it was just a normal YouTube video. And I will answer and help you guys at in the comments of those. And then like Jamie said, any last minute start sit questions, he's got you guys going for 2 Sunday morning at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time to help you guys out with that as well. So appreciate all of you guys. And yeah, have a wonderful weekend. We'll catch you guys again next Friday, same time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. And until then, peace.